Why do people in Spain, Greece, and Italy eat bread every single day and feel completely fine? But here in America, that same bread makes you feel terrible. Well, because what we call bread in America can't even be considered food in most of Europe. A long time ago, American food companies figured out that wheat goes bad fast, and that's bad for business. So they started gutting it, taking out everything that made it good for you, just so it could sit on a shelf longer. They put in fake vitamins to replace the real ones they took out, chlorine to make it whiter, and factory chemicals to make it puff up faster. Layer after layer after layer of changes. Until what you're holding at the grocery store barely looks like the thing humans have been eating for thousands of years. Europe looked at this process and said no, but we didn't. And now we're bloated, tired, and foggy, blaming wheat for a problem that wheat didn't create. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what's in your bread, what it's doing to your body, and explore healthier alternatives. In America, we've got Martin's potato bread, Pepperidge Farm sourdough, and Thomas English muffins buttermilk. And here's what's really inside them. Martin's potato bread has a list of over 20 ingredients. But the ones you actually need to worry about: datum, sodium stearoyl lactylate, and calcium propionate. Datum and sodium stearoyl lactylate are both lab-made chemicals used to mix things that normally wouldn't mix together, like oil and water. The problem is that once you eat them, they go into your gut and start messing with the good bacteria living there. Your gut is full of good bacteria that help you digest food, fight off sickness, and even keep your mood balanced. When these chemicals disrupt that balance, your gut lining can become irritated and weakened. Over time, this kind of irritation is linked to bloating, digestive issues, and a sluggish immune system, because your immune system and your gut are directly connected. There are no chemicals like these in traditional European bread, because traditional bread doesn't need them. The other terrible ingredient we found in this brand, which you'll also see in the other two, is calcium propionate, a preservative that stops mold from growing. But it doesn't just do that. When children eat bread with calcium propionate every day, which most kids do because sandwich bread is everywhere, they may start acting differently in ways that are easy to miss or blame on something else. These children become more irritable than usual. Not the bouncing off the walls hyperactivity that people think of. It's more subtle than that. Like huge overreactions when asked to do things they don't want to do, like homework or chores. These kids would blow up over small frustrations. They also had trouble sleeping and trouble focusing in school. And because this is happening every single day, with every sandwich, the effects just stack up. Parents are confused, teachers are frustrated, and the preservative in the bread is never even on the radar. Pepperidge Farm sourdough. Look at this one carefully. It says sourdough right on the label, but it is not actually real sourdough. Real sourdough has 2 or 3 ingredients, and it takes days to make because the dough slowly ferments with natural wild yeast. That fermentation process is what makes real sourdough actually good for you. It breaks down the parts of wheat that are hard to digest, keeps your blood sugar from spiking, and makes the nutrients in the flour easier for your body to absorb. This version skips all of that. Instead, it uses sorbic acid and calcium propionate to stop mold from growing, and vegetable oils to make it feel soft. And without that fermentation process, your body gets none of those benefits. You're getting the name sourdough and none of the benefits, while still getting all the preservatives. And then there's Thomas's English muffins buttermilk. Now, if you flip this one over and look at the ingredients, there's something in there called sodium acid pyrophosphate. It's the chemical that makes the muffin rise and get fluffy. It does the job of traditional yeast, but faster and cheaper. The issue is your body ends up with more phosphate in your blood than it can handle. Your kidneys have to work overtime to filter it out, and too much phosphate has been linked to a higher risk of heart disease and damaged kidneys, especially in people who already have some kidney issues. It also shows up in this bread alongside calcium propionate and sorbic acid, meaning your body is handling several chemical preservatives at once with every single bite. Now let's talk about one more thing hiding in 2 of these breads. Pepperidge Farm and Thomas's both contain vegetable oils, which is where trans fats come in. Trans fats are a type of fat that gets created when liquid vegetable oil is processed. Even if the label says 0 grams of trans fat, there can still be some inside. The FDA allows companies to round down to 0 as long as a serving has less than half a gram. So, one slice of bread could legally contain 0.49 grams of trans fat and still be labeled 0. Eat 2 or 3 slices, which most people do, and you could be getting close to 1.5 grams of trans fat without knowing it. So what's the problem? Well, trans fats do 2 things in your body that directly raise your risk of heart disease. First, they raise your LDL cholesterol. That's the bad cholesterol that sticks to your artery walls like sludge, making them narrow and harder for blood to flow through. Second, they lower your HDL cholesterol. That's the good cholesterol that acts like a cleaner, sweeping the bad stuff away so your body can get rid of it. So trans fats hit your heart from both directions at once, building up the bad while wiping out the good. Over time, your heart has to work harder to push blood through your body. That leads to high blood pressure and eventually raises your risk of a heart attack or stroke. Long-term trans fat consumption has also been linked to inflammation, diabetes, and certain cancers. The Institute of Medicine has been clear. There is no safe level of trans fat. None. Yet, because of this labeling loophole, people eat it every day without realizing it. The craziest thing is that what's going into American bread is outright banned in other countries. Let's start with potassium bromate. Potassium bromate is a chemical that's added to bread dough to make it stronger, help it rise higher, and give the finished loaf that soft, fluffy texture that Americans expect. It was approved by the FDA back in 1941, over 80 years ago, and it's been in bread products ever since. What we've learned since then is that this chemical is classified as something that may cause cancer in humans. Studies on animals, thyroid, and other organs. It is flagged by the World Health Organization, and country after country started banning it. The United Kingdom in 1990, the European Union, Canada, Brazil, China, India, and over 50 other countries. The FDA still says it's fine, as long as it's used in quote-unquote safe amounts. Their argument is that it turns into something harmless during baking. But independent testing has found that it doesn't always fully convert. So leftovers of potassium bromate can still be present in the finished bread that you're eating. And then there's azodicarbonamide. And yes, that's a mouthful, which is fitting because you're literally putting it in your mouth. Azodicarbonamide is a chemical that's used in 2 industries, bread manufacturing and making foam products like yoga mats and shoe soles. Same chemical. It's added to dough to make the bread whiter, softer, and rise faster. The problem? When azodicarbonamide gets heated during baking, it breaks down into another chemical called semicarbazide, which has been linked to tumor growth in animal studies. It's also been connected to breathing problems in people who work in factories where it's produced. The European Union banned it in 1997, but in America, it's still listed as generally recognized as safe. And that phrase, generally recognized as safe, or GRAS, GRAS, is actually the heart of the whole problem. Europe's rule is simple. Show us it's safe before we allow it. If scientists aren't sure something won't hurt people, Europe says no. America's rule, on the other hand, it's fine until someone proves it's dangerous. The FDA says ingredients are GRAS until there's really strong proof they're harmful. See the problem? By the time that America proves that something is dangerous, millions of people have already been eating it for years. What's worse is that nobody has studied what happens when you eat all these chemicals together, which is exactly what you're doing. You're getting datum, calcium propionate, sodium acid pyrophosphate, and potassium bromate all at once in the same bite. Together, they can damage your gut microbiome, the community of good bacteria that keeps you healthy. When your gut lining gets damaged, toxins can slip into your bloodstream. Your body stays inflamed, and that constant inflammation is linked to serious problems. Heart disease, brain fog, depression. Your immune system is getting hit from multiple directions at once. And the combined damage is likely far worse than any single ingredient alone. Here's the good news. You don't have to eat chemical-filled bread. In fact, here are a few good options for you. Option 1. Dave's Killer Bread. Instead of weird chemicals, it's packed with real organic ingredients. Here's what's actually in it. Organic whole wheat flour and cracked whole wheat. Water. Organic cane sugar. Organic 21 whole grains and seeds mix. Organic oat fiber. Organic wheat gluten. Organic molasses. Yeast. Sea salt. Organic cultured wheat flour. Organic vinegar. Organic acerola cherry powder. And enzymes. Natural proteins that work like tiny helpers, breaking down starch and softening the dough so that the bread can rise and bake perfectly, without any chemical shortcuts. You can find Dave's Killer Bread at most grocery stores, Target, Walmart, or Amazon. Yes, it costs a bit more, but that's because it's made with real food instead of a chemistry lab. Option 2, make your own sourdough. This is cheaper than buying fancy bread, and it's actually really easy. But there are 2 parts to it. First, you need a starter, and then you make the bread itself. Making a sourdough starter is easy. It's just flour and water that catches natural yeast floating in the air to help your bread rise. It takes about a week, but you only need to spend 2 minutes a day on it. To start, mix a cup of flour and a cup of water in a jar, and then leave it on your counter with a loose lid. On the second day, just let it sit. Starting on day 3, and for the rest of the week, you'll quote-unquote feed it once a day. Throw away half the mix, and then stir in a half cup of flour and a half cup of water. By day 7, it should look bubbly, smell tangy, and grow to double its size after a feeding. To see if it's ready to bake, drop a spoonful in a glass of water. If it floats, you're good to go. If you aren't baking every day, just keep it in the fridge and feed it once a week to keep it alive. Now, to make your sourdough bread, you'll need 475 grams of all-purpose flour, which is about 3.5 cups, 100 grams of active sourdough starter, which is about half a cup, 325 grams of water, which is 1 1/3 cups, and 10 grams of salt, 2 teaspoons. To make your bread, just mix the flour, water, starter, and salt together in a bowl and let it rest for 30 minutes. Instead of heavy kneading, you'll just stretch and fold the dough. That means that every 30 minutes, pull an edge of the dough up high and tuck it into the middle. Do this 4 times, then repeat the whole process 3 more times over an hour and a half. After that, let the dough sit in a warm spot for 6 to 12 hours until it grows to double its size. Once it has grown, shape it into a ball on a floured surface, let it rest for 20 minutes, and fold the sides in again to make it firm. Put it in a floured bowl, cover it, and let it sit in the fridge overnight. The next day, heat your oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit for an hour. Cut a small slit in the top of your cold dough, put it in a hot pot with a lid, and then bake for 20 minutes. Finally, take the lid off, turn the heat down to 475 degrees Fahrenheit, and bake for about 20 more minutes until it's golden brown. After that, you will get an amazing fresh bread. Now you have better options than that science experiment loaf of bread. But don't let the conversation stop here. Share this video, talk about what you've learned, and start reading ingredient labels. Want more healthy food swaps? Check out my Food Swap ebook. Inside, you'll find simple, practical food swaps that clearly compares the common go-to with a healthier option. It's packed with recipes, ingredients, and macros. You can find the link in the description down below. Hit like if you learned something, subscribe for more deep dives exposing what's really in your food, and drop a comment down below. What shocked you the most? Want more food exposed? Let me know what I should investigate next. Let's stay curious and make better choices for your health.